Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the 700 Club. Global warming has struck again. Imagine 49 out of the 50 states had a dusting of snow. Even in Hawaii, there was snow in the mountains. There's been snow all over, and we have sure had it here. We're going to be talking about that. Not used to having where we live. We're in Virginia Beach. But look at that.
Look at that.
That is us. That is us. Can you believe it? That is CBN. But in any event, it has been something. 49 states, and people talk about global warming. But we'll tell you more about that. But the battle lines have been drawn over President-elect Trump's cabinet choices. Republicans want to move quickly to put the cabinet in place, but Democrats say the process is moving far too fast.
Well, meanwhile, President Obama says his signature health care law will survive despite Republican plans to repeal it. Gary Lane brings us the story.
2 Trump cabinet confirmation hearings are scheduled for Tuesday, 5 more on Wednesday. Among them, Senator Jeff Sessions for Attorney General, Betsy DeVos for Education, Mike Pompeo at CIA, Rex Tillerson for Secretary of State, and Elaine Chao for Transportation. Sessions, Tillerson, and DeVos are expected to be the most contentious, but Democrats changed the rules when they controlled the Senate. Now nominees only need a simple majority to gain Senate approval. Democrats want to slow down the process because background checks have yet to be completed on most of Trump's cabinet picks. Republicans argue Donald Trump has the right to have most of his cabinet picks in place by the time he comes into office. However, the director of the U.S. Office of Government Ethics says the fast pace of the hearings is placing undue pressure on investigators who are reviewing the background of the nominees. No more than when Obama first came into office, says Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. The Senate approved 7 Obama picks the first day of Mr. Obama's presidency. We didn't like most of them either, said McConnell, but he won the election.
All of these little procedural complaints are related to their frustration at having not only lost the White House, but having lost the Senate. I understand that, but we need to sort of grow up here and get past that.
And in their final days in office, both the president and vice president made some last-minute digs against Trump. Vice President Joe Biden said the president-elect needs to grow up and stop tweeting inflammatory statements. And President Obama suggested the same in a final interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos. Mr. Obama said Trump needs to learn the difference between campaigning and governing.
As soon as you walk into this office after you've been sworn in, you're now in charge of the largest organization on earth. You can't manage it the way you would manage a family business.
The president also says he thinks his signature law, Obamacare, will survive, though he admits it may be called something else.
My hope is that the president-elect, members of Congress from both parties, look at where have we objectively made progress, where things are working better. Don't undo things just because I did them.
And Friday, after an intelligence briefing on Russian hacking, the president-elect admitted Russia, China, and others are consistently trying to hack a number of U.S. institutions. He responded to intelligence agency findings that Russian President Putin ordered the hack of the DNC computers, saying there was absolutely no effect on the outcome of the election. While many members of Congress have expressed concern over the vulnerability of the United States to foreign computer hacks, many express doubts and say there's little substance to the intelligence reports. Among the skeptics is former CIA Director Michael Hayden, who said he had a sense of disappointment about a lack of specifics after reading the intelligence report. Regardless, even those who believe the U.S. intelligence findings on Russian hacking fell short. There's growing consensus throughout Washington that the government and U.S. corporations need to beef up anti-hacking cybersecurity efforts. Gary Lane, CBN News.
By the way, at Regent University, we're working on cybersecurity. Do you know, ladies and gentlemen, there are 1 million, get this, 1 million unfilled positions for cyber analysts and cybersecurity experts. 1 million jobs unfilled in this nation. There is a tremendous shortage of people who are skilled in this area, and it is so vital. Just imagine if they hack into the grid, the electrical grid, and all of a sudden they shut things down, and it can be done. Once they hack into the control nodules, then of course they can manipulate the power grid, shut down the stock exchange, shut down the ATMs. I mean, it can be horrible what can be done. So we need to get on with that. And if there's ever an area where we ought to spend some serious money, it's in that. Well, in other news, the Palestinian terrorist group Hamas is praising the attack in Jerusalem that killed 4 Israelis over the weekend. John Jessup has that.
That's right, Pat. Hamas is not claiming responsibility for the truck ramming attack, but a spokesman for Hamas did say it was a heroic act and called on other Palestinians to do the same and escalate attacks on Israelis. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says according to all the signs, the attacker was a supporter of ISIS. John Wagi brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Police call it one of the worst terror attacks in Jerusalem in more than a year.
We know that he deliberately drove that vehicle, the truck, into the group of soldiers that he saw that had just got off the bus. It was definitely a terrorist attack. It was caused intentionally. And our main emphasis is to make sure there's no further terrorist attacks here in Jerusalem today.
One video shows the driver barreling up over the curb and driving through the soldiers, then backing up at high speed in order to run over more people before authorities shot and killed him. It happened as about 200 soldiers participated in a field day.
And I was just downstairs with my group, another group of soldiers, and we just heard what's going on, and it was very frightening. Everyone just ran away and tried to find a place to hide, and that's exactly what I did.
When we arrived on scene, there were a number of victims, both trapped under the front of the truck as well as next to the truck, and we began to treat them. The situation, like all terror attacks, no matter how much you prepare, was mayhem. That is what it's like at a terror attack.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman visited the scene.
This is part of the same pattern, inspired by Islamic State, by ISIS, that we saw first in France and then in Germany, now in Jerusalem. This is part of the same ongoing battle against this global scourge of the new terrorism. We can only fight it together, but we have to fight it, and we will.
The attacker came from the eastern Jerusalem neighborhood of Jabal Mukaber, home to other terrorists in the past. Palestinians celebrated the attack in Gaza. Hamas declared the attack heroic and said it proved that Palestinians would not stop pursuing jihad. 40 Israelis and 2 Americans have now died in various terrorist attacks and vehicular assaults here since September 2015. Many fear terrorism will only increase following the UN Security Council resolution condemning Israeli settlements in the West Bank. John Wagi, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, John. Well, here at home, the Iraq War veteran charged with killing 5 people and wounding 6 at the Fort Lauderdale airport could face the death penalty. Esteban Santiago admitted he planned the attack buying a one-way ticket to Florida. Disturbing video from TMZ shows the moment Santiago opened fire in the airport. The victims include Michael Omi of Iowa, Terry Andres of Virginia, and Olga Woltering, a great-grandmother from Georgia who was beloved by her church. Investigators have not ruled out terrorism as a motive. Well, with same-sex marriage now legal in the U.S. and about 20 other countries, Taiwan is considering becoming the first nation in Asia to make the change. But as Heather Sells reports, Taiwanese Christians are standing firm to protect traditional marriage.
80,000 LGBT supporters recently took to the streets in Taipei for Asia's largest ever gay pride parade. Although no Asian country has legalized same-sex marriage, many gay activists believe Taiwan could become the first. They were encouraged by this recent Facebook video posted by Taiwan's new president, Tsai Ing-wen.
I support gay marriages, and everyone has the right to love and to be married.
Taiwan's legislature is considering a bill to legalize gay marriage. It needs support from 57 of its 113 lawmakers to move forward. So far, 56 have backed the bill. Gay marriage advocates say legalization will create long-term benefits.
Because we just recently had 2 babies, the most urgent need for us is actually the parental rights.
Religious affiliation has affected opinions on same-sex marriage. In one recent survey, 80% of Taiwanese between the ages of 20 and 29, mostly Buddhists and Taoists, favor legalization. By comparison, 75% of Christians oppose it. They say gay marriage distorts traditional gender roles and damages the meaning of marriage.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Local church leaders have organized nationwide protests urging Taiwanese to oppose the legislation.
We stand right here today to tell the government that Christians in Taiwan are strongly against legalizing same-sex marriage. We will not stop saying that. No decision should be made without the public consent.
I expect that Taiwan could pass this law as quickly as it can, and then the other countries could follow Taiwan's path lead. We are making big progress in the history of human rights.
Conservative groups and Christians say they'll press hard to protect traditional Taiwanese culture and preserve family values. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thanks, Heather. Well, here at home, people around the country are still digging out after snow and ice covered the ground in 49 states over the weekend, much of it in the South and Mid-Atlantic states like North Carolina.
Much just putting salt sand on because there's no way to get it off the road when temperatures are that cold.
Luckily, I drive four-wheel drive Jeep, so I've been okay, but I've seen links of Six Forks entirely covered in sheets of ice. I've seen the ice even raised up an inch over, and I mean, even being careful, been slipping around quite a bit.
Warmer weather is on its way this week for parts of the country, so the ice shouldn't last very long. Temperatures in some areas will climb anywhere between the 40s and 70s in the Midwest. The highs are expected to reach nearly 80 degrees by the weekend. And Pat, it looked like a winter wonderland there in Virginia Beach, but I hear you had ice underneath all that snow.
It's crazy. Well, the thing that they were so worried about is so-called black ice. You're driving along, it looks like a normal highway, and actually it's a sheet of ice, and there is no way that any vehicle can stop. Your brakes do not work, and you begin a skid, and the skid gets out of control. It's a terribly dangerous type of environment. And what we've had in Virginia Beach, it rained, and then it snowed, and then it froze, and then it melted a little bit, then it froze again, and it is very dangerous. So in our area today, for example, all the schools are closed, and the colleges are closed, the public schools are closed because the secondary roads are just impassable. Probably by the end of the day, it'll start melting, and by tomorrow, the temperatures are going to go up into the 60s or even 70s. So it's crazy, crazy weather.